Welcome to the Susan Brender Show. It's all about you, featuring shows on health and wellness, the performing arts, politics, and people who inspire you to be your very best. And now, here's Susan Brender.
Today's a very important day for me because I have two people that are going to be on my show who I have so many good feelings about that I really am excited to share it with my audience. And the first person that I have as a guest on the show is Amoris Walker. Now let's talk about her. Amoris is an award-winning documentary filmmaker who grew up traveling around the U.S. in a family band called Earthwalkers. The action through music and comedy has something to do with all these shows. Now, we have so much to talk about with Amoris that I don't want to continue to give you more information. She's going to share that with you. And her name is Deidre Regal, and I want to welcome Deidre Regal to the show and Amoris Walker. So, hi, girls.
Hi, it's
Hello.
Great to be here. Amoris, it's lovely to have you on our show.
Thank you. It's so great to be here, and I'm sitting next to my mother, Lynn Walker, who is going to be eavesdropping on this whole thing with us.
Well, that's good because before I continue to ask you questions about the Kenya Project, which is very important on your list of things to talk about, I want you to tell our audience a little bit about you. So go ahead, Amoris.
Thank you very much. I grew up, like you said, in a family band. We were called the Earthwalkers, and it was based on the idea of my parents as musicians and singers and songwriters and environmentalists. It was based on the idea that we needed to teach children about how to protect the environment that they live in, how to protect their habitats, so that they could grow up in a world that would be healthy and beautiful and safe for everybody. Currently, we're still working towards that goal. But the Earthwalkers performed thousands of shows all over the country for many children of all ages, including the young at heart and all the way down to little kindergartners. And it was all inspired by my mom and dad. And my mom's sitting right here, so I'm going to let her say hello real quick.
Hello, you too, and hello, everyone that's listening. It's such a joy to be here. And we were inspired to take our kids on the road because I had read in a psychological journal that the children between the ages of 8 and 10 were not having dreams anymore about who they wanted to be in the future because they felt that the future was bleak. And that broke my heart. So I wanted to let our kids know that we're going to do something about it, and we're going to die trying if we have to. So we decided to take them on the road, and we had the most phenomenal family experience, and we met hundreds of unbelievable people nationwide, and the kids especially really got into our message, which was in the 80s,
Wow.
kind of ahead of our time. So
yeah,
anyway,
it sure sounds like it. Now, I want Deidre to ask you a question because, Deidre, come on and jump in.
I absolutely would love to jump in. Well, Lynn, it's lovely to have you here as well. And of course, you know I admire the both of you, and Laura's is just a fabulous family. And I've been delighted to know you for these last several years. So, Amoris, this question goes to you, and it's a bit dicey because your mom's sitting right next to you. But what was it like growing up in a family band?
Oh, it was remarkable and spectacular and very difficult. And it was all of the things. My parents always made us feel, no matter where we were, what we were doing, that that our contribution to the band and to the family was important. And that's true to this day. We were cooking dinner together last night, and they were all just loving the food that we were cooking together. We have this incredible family connection because we spent so much time close-knit playing music and hopefully inspiring people where we went. So it was not always easy, I will admit that, but no family dynamic is. But what we did have is incredible communication skills, music, comedy, and, we are just the best of friends.
Wow. You're very lucky and very fortunate, Amoris, because there are so many people in this world, so many kids who are out in the streets and homeless people, and it's just terrible. And when you hear about a story like yours where you're talking about how your family is close, It's just, it really is special. Now, Amoris, why do you call yourself a digital nomad? And give our audience a definition of a digital nomad.
That is a great question. So I grew up traveling on the road, and now I'm an adult who loves to travel. And I run my own company. It's called Hot Tea Media. I do social media management and video production for my clients, and have the ability to choose who I get to work with, people that are like-minded and care about the environment and the world we live in, which is a blessing. So I decided that I didn't want to live in one place. At this point in my life, I wanted to be able to travel. And I have been about a year now, year and a half, I've been traveling all over the country and in several different countries to produce films about programs that I love and people that inspire me. And so I'm a digital nomad. I'm a gypsy with a computer, which can be very dangerous.
That's a great title for a book, Amoris.
It is. It's a great title.
So what do you think about what she's doing, Deidre, and does it inspire you?
Oh, it absolutely does. Amoris is one of those young women that, would that I had been that way when I was her age, so devoted to her craft and so vibrant and so full of life. Of course, I honor my life as it was. And then the parental influence has been exceedingly powerful. The family's been such a tight-knit unit. Very inspirational is what it does for me. Amoris, I have a question for you that I've wanted to ask a long time. The title of your company, or the name of your company, is Hot Tea Media. So tell me how you came to call it Hot Tea Media. Tell me how it came to be. Actually, tell our audience as well. And what does the name mean, and what does it do?
Well, hot tea is something that you can find anywhere in the world. It is something that is warm and comforting and delicious, and it brings people together for conversation, and oftentimes it brings people together at times of celebration and times of mourning. And it is a central theme in almost every country in the world. Coffee is as well, but hot coffee didn't sound like the best company for me, even though I'm drinking some right now. But hot tea is something that, everywhere I've traveled to, from Peru to Chile to Uruguay to Kenya and everywhere in between, is served to everybody, the children all the way up to the grandparents. And it's a very important tradition in many countries. And my feeling for my company was that I wanted to bring people together with the things that I produce and the content that I put online. There's so much divisiveness in the world, and there's so much going on that divides us. And what I would like to do is bring us together. So,
well, okay, now I'm going to step in right now because you just said something. There's been all different discussions about how we are not united in this country, how we are not doing the right job because there's all kinds of things happening, more deaths. There's even a possibility of a war. And in your opinion, why is it that the population doesn't seem to want to unite? They don't want to stick together, do they?
Well, I think at the heart of everybody, they actually do want to stick together. It's just much easier to fight. People getting along and learning how to communicate and be compassionate to one another is much more difficult than it is to divide. And frankly, the powers that be love to have us divided because it makes it easier to conquer. It's politics, it's religion, it's even down to the food we eat, whether or not we want to know if there's GMOs in the food we eat. It's dividing us and making it easier for us to be led, let's say. And instead of us speaking up for ourselves and saying, many of the communities that I talk with and many of my friends say that we actually do have a lot in common. I have plenty of friends who are Republicans, and we have conversations about how what we all really want is a roof over our head, a job, health care, our children to be protected. It's very simple and basic. And if you get us all in a room together, 9 times out of 10, we want the same things. We want peace and safety. And unfortunately, I think it's just easier to fight and cause controversy. And sometimes I think people like the feeling of fighting. Arguments, they raise our cortisone levels and our hormones and our blood levels and get our brains going, unfortunately. But constructive conversation also does that. And I feel like learning how to be a good communicator, being intentional with what you say and how you say it, is something that we all can be better at in this country and around the world. Just intentional speaking.
How do you account for the fact that we, our kids, our teenagers, are going on drugs? They're doing things that are just not very good. And in Kenya, you have the opposite, and they have nothing. They have nothing, and they still have this great attitude about life. So I want to know, when you meet the kids in Kenya, why can't we kind of adopt that kind of attitude in this country?
Well, I think that comes from the simpler life. They wake up in the morning and their goals for the day are to bring home food, create fire, take care of each other, and to survive. And we have so many options for what we can do with our time. We're not just surviving. I mean, we have options to go out and have fun and spend a lot of money, or, some people have to work very hard and 3 or 4 different jobs just to be able to buy a house in this country. So the idea of survival and just making it through the day, it makes everything simpler. And I remember one of my favorite moments in Kenya was at nighttime, about 10 o'clock, they'd be cooking dinner. They eat dinner very late, and they'd be cooking dinner. They've worked all day, and primarily these are the women. The women have been gathering water. They've been getting wood for the fire, taking care of the food, and it's the end of the day, plus they take care of all the children. And it's the end of the day, and they're cooking their meal, and they're laughing about just about anything, really, and dancing and playing music, and so joyful, even though their lives are filled with challenges. They've accepted that those are their challenges, and they still find joy in those little moments. It was really quite lovely.
Deidre, listen to what you just said. What do you think is the reason that there are so many? I mean, I'm asking for your opinion about this. You have done music, and you have taught, and you have composed, and you've done all kinds of things. Now, the Kenyans, if you think about their kind of music, they have drums, they hum, they sing, they dance, they're joyful people. Does your music, would it translate to that kind of attitude that our kids can enjoy, or is it still only the problems with singing songs like that are rap and hip-hop and sometimes violent? So what do you have to say about this, Deidre?
I sincerely hope that my particular brand of music does speak to the heart of people and does help them think in a more simple, indigenous, heartfelt way. And that's one of the things that I share with Amoris is providing, I hope I share with Amoris anyway, is providing a way and a space for people to really come back to the roots and remember that without Mother Earth, we are nothing. And so the work that Amoris is doing, in my mind, is so much along the same lines as I. It's just simply different tools to help us realize that we are all human. And as you said, Amoris, we all want the same thing, to feel safe and loved and to be able to come together without the fear of judgment and discrepancy, but to really know that we're all in this together. So that's what I hope my music is doing, and I hope this radio show, this podcast that we're all contributing to today is doing, is to send that message that we're all human and we all want the same thing.
Yeah. And what about Amoris, the education in Kenya, for example? Does it cost a lot for people to go to school? I'm going to give you a little story that I experienced. I was in South Africa just a while ago, and I went to a school. It was a one-room school, and there were kids who were like 5 years old, and there were kids who were 14 years old. There was just mixed. It was boys and girls, and in a freezing cold room, there was no electricity. And I said to the principal in the school, I said, you know what, I'd like to donate books to the school. And you know what he said to me? He said, Well, we would like books in the school, and it would help us a lot. So I went to the person who took me there, who used to be a principal there, and he said, don't give them books. I said, why not? He said, because they'll burn them. They need it for wood. They need it for heat. And I was shocked. Did you experience that kind of educational system in Kenya?
Well, there were certainly many challenges. I just want to say one thing before I answer that, and that is, which your experience sounds incredible. And also I wanted to speak to the fact that Deirdre's music absolutely inspires people. And, yes, it is changing lives, and you are making a difference, Deirdre. So keep doing that.
Good. Thank you. Good to know. Good to know. Please,
yes, you have a beautiful voice and a beautiful heart. You know, what I experienced in both Rwanda and South Africa, I lost my train of thought there. What I experienced both in Rwanda and Kenya for the girls that I worked with and schools that I worked with is they do need things like that. I never experienced anybody burning any books. They definitely hold dear to everything that they possibly can. Now, the difference is that they have access to a lot of firewood, so maybe that's not necessarily their need there. What I experienced in Rwanda is that the kids that would come up to us when we were traveling through, you know, often people will try and give them candies. And the group that I was traveling with, actually, we brought pencils and papers and books for them. And what the kids actually wanted was not candy. They wanted pencils and papers for school. So to me, their thirst for knowledge is just unbelievable. And there was one little girl in Kenya who told me, you know, we're just as smart as everybody in the rest of the world, and we have the ability to learn and be good people. This girl was like 8 years old, and she spoke with such pathos, and she said, we have the ability to be just as smart as anybody else, and we want that opportunity. And I said, well, what do you want to be when you grow up? What would you go to school for? And she said, I will be a doctor. And I said, why would you like to be a doctor? And she said, I would like to take care of my mother when she is sick.
It's a very inspiring story. Deidre, let's get into the whole notion and the whole subject of being an environmentalist, because there are so many countries around the world that are having all kinds of pollution and all kinds of problems, and you name it, it's just a horrible thing. So what do you have to ask Amoris about the environment?
Well, obvious question. You know, what have you learned so far as an environmentalist? And right along with that, what do you think our greatest threat as human beings on planet Earth is in 2017?
Well, it's a controversial answer, but I have been a vegetarian for 25 years and currently am working on becoming a 100% vegan, because I believe that, in fact, I know that science proves that the greatest threat to our planet is the raising of industrial livestock. And it has been proven in movies like Cowspiracy and Speciesism. I know people don't like to hear it, but it is the truth. And it's more damaging than all of the coal and all of the water problems that we have, because it creates deforestation, pollution to the water systems, all of the water systems, and, of course, you know, treating sentient beings as if they aren't sentient, which is also a moral dilemma for me. I do believe we can fix it, and I learned that, you know, working with my parents growing up. I remember asking my mom as a young child, how are we going to fix the planet? How are we going to take care of ourselves and all the animals? And I'm going to actually let her answer that question. She inspired me by telling me about Pearl Buck.
Oh, yes.
There are two sides of the story, you know. So you're talking about one side, and I'm going to, once I hear, Lynn, you tell us about your experience, I'm going to tell you about mine. So go on. Let's hear you, Lynn.
Just briefly, because it could be a long story, but I love Pearl Buck, read all of her books and her biography. And when I saw what had happened to the Chinese generation after generation, the ups and the downs. You know, they went through horrific problems over the centuries. And, you know, before I read Pearl Buck, I wasn't going to have children because I thought the world is too messed up. But then after I read Pearl Buck and saw that everything comes back full circle, it just keeps renewing itself, keeps returning, then I thought, this is the way of life. I was a young woman before I had kids, you know, 19, and I figured that, okay, it would be all right to have children on this planet. It would be all right, and I would really like to, because I have hope and I believe that mankind can fix every problem we have created. So that's where I come from.
So I have Pearl Buck to thank for being here.
I'm so glad.
me
I'm
too.
sure Pearl Buck would appreciate you a lot. Well, I want to talk about what I've heard and what people say about the environment and all the people who are just supporting this whole notion of having all these extra things like solar panels and wind tunnels and, you know, all these different things to make the environment better. Well, what I've heard is that it's all based on money, money. So, Deidre, let's you and I have a conversation about it with Amoris and Lynn, if you may.
Well, the song says money makes the world go round, the world go round, the world go round. I absolutely agree that it is about money, and what I am so hopeful about now is that I am seeing a shift from the groundswell up to the rafters in our thinking as people about how we stewardship our planet and stewardship our lives. So I'm seeing a groundswell of people who are realizing, yes, we do tend to eat sentient beings. We are making major damage to our planet and have been for years, and it's time to do something about it. So I'm seeing more veganism. I'm seeing more environmentally aware actions across the board. And this is very encouraging to me. So we're in transition, and that's where I'm putting my hope is at the transition. We're turning over a new leaf, and we're becoming, once again, a race of beings who genuinely care about our planet and for each other. And that's where I'm holding my hope.
Yeah.
Amen.
I'd like to interject one thing, and that is that the consumer holds the key to changing the world. And when we decide what we're going to buy, what we're going to purchase, what we're going to do with our money, that changes everything because then they follow suit. Absolutely. So it's up to us to educate people about what they need to buy, and most everything is for the health of the planet and for the health of the children and our own selves. So we vote with our dollars. That's as simple as that. You're absolutely right about the money.
Yeah, that's really true. So let's step up again and talk a little bit more about your way of thinking, Amoris. If you had your choice, and this was almost the end of the show, what would you ask our audience? Or, you know, I'm going to make you a host for the moment. Or why don't you also tell us what you think is the most important thing that we've talked about today? And is there anything else that you want to say?
Oh, I think absolutely the most important thing is that we're a group of strong, remarkable women. And the future is female. You know, I love men. I do. I love both sexes, but women are becoming so empowered and showing their true colors and really inspiring the next generation. I'm inspired by all of you ladies. My mom has been my greatest inspiration in this world. I might even get choked up just thinking about it because she really has been the person in my life who has shown me that I am capable of doing anything I want. And she's a remarkable woman. As far as that goes for women, you know, my project in Kenya was to help 10 girls go to secondary school. They are the first girls in their Maasai village who will not be circumcised and married at 15. They are in school currently, and they will bring home an education and knowledge for their families that will help their village come into the 21st century, which is what they desperately want, is to get out of poverty. So that's incredibly inspirational. I worked with a girl named Christine Busby, who has a nonprofit called Give 35 Millimeters, and we went to Kenya together for that project. So empowering women and being an empowered woman, that's what I think is important these days.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you'll have a documentary coming out soon. About Kenya? Am I correct about that, Amoris?
Yes, that's what we were filming while we were there, was the process of putting these girls into school. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
We will keep up with you on that one. That's good.
That's right.
Yes,
right.
I will keep you posted when I have something to show, and we hope to return May 2018 to get a follow-up of all the girls who have now been in school for almost a year and see how it has impacted their lives. So I'm looking forward to going back, and definitely will keep you posted when I have the first part of the documentary finished.
Wonderful, Amoris. You go, girl.
If you will.
I want to thank you both for doing what you do out there and empowering all the guests that you have on your show. It really makes a difference because your show is very unique, and I want to thank you so much for doing this.
Well, it's our pleasure. Before you close the show, I want to ask Amoris again, if people wanting to get in touch with you and talk a little bit about the project in Kenya or anything else that you're doing, such as the documentary, and they wanted to help you with the documentary to raise money for it, how would they do that?
Oh, thank you for asking. Yes, my website is hotteamedia.com, and I'm also on Facebook, and that's a great way to get a hold of me. And they can send me direct messages on my website and also see short clips that show you about what we were working on and how we're raising money for those girls and for the film. HotTeaMedia.com. And all you have to do is think about sitting with your best friend over a cup of hot tea.
What a great name. So, Lynn and Amoris, I thank you so much for your time, for being who you are, and sharing yourselves and your great gifts today with us on the Susan Brender Radio Podcast Show. Thank you, and bless you.
Thank you. In Kenya, they would say Ashena Leng.
Say it again.
Ashena Leng.
What does that mean, actually?
Thank you very much in Maasai.
Well, thank you very much, both Amoris Walker and Lynn, who is her mother, Lynn Walker, too. And I think it's a terrific thing that you're doing. And I'm sure all our audience is going to be very interested in listening to this interview. And I appreciate the fact that you were on my show. So thank you again.
Oh, I'm honored. Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you for listening to The Susan Brender Show. To be a guest, email sebrender@yahoo.com.